Now we're ready to start. Speaker A. Have you ever had a dog? Welcome to John Grogan's world. He's the author of Marley and Me, and also the owner of Marley, the lab puppy who grew to a 95-pound member of his family. Marley can be very difficult and frustrating, though, and this is the main conflict in the book. Should the Grogans get rid of their dog because of his sometimes destructive behavior? This question lingers throughout and makes you want to keep reading. Speaker B.
When I read this book, I was pleasantly surprised by how good it is. Though it does have some boring parts, the majority is great. Every second counts. Talks about what happened to Lance Armstrong from 1999 after he won his first Tour de France. It also describes Armstrong's experience with cancer and sports-related injuries. I've learned a lot from reading this book, including if you make a mistake, all you can do is learn from it. That piece of advice is shared many times in the book and is totally true.
Speaker C. A Brief History of Time is worth reading, especially for those who love science, space, physics, and the universe. After reading it, you will know a great deal about the universe and our place in it. About half of Hawking's text is clearly expository and rather hard to digest, which must be why he added pictures to new editions. There is at least one illustration on almost every page. Some of the more abstract things are hard to imagine, so the pictures help you understand, which is great for visual learners. Speaker D.
Never Change by Elizabeth Burke really surprised me. I was skeptical at first, but after a few pages it got me. I definitely enjoyed reading this novel and witnessing the wonderful relationship that develops between Myra and Chip. Burke knows how to use humor and irony to make a scene stick in readers' minds. There is nothing I didn't like about the novel. So, if you want to find out why the life of a nurse is not boring at all, I recommend Never Change. You won't waste your time.
Speaker E. Sean Covey has followed in his famous fathers and written the definitive success guide for teens, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. Today's teens are busier and more stressed than ever before. With school, hours of homework, athletics, jobs, clubs, helping at home and more, we barely have time to breathe. The 7 Habits serves as a guide for teens to improve their self-image, build friendships, resist peer pressure, and achieve goals. Speaker F.
The best-selling author, Thomas L. Friedman, discusses life, business, and government in his The World is Flat. Humans are all lions or gazelles, racing for survival in a new era of globalization, according to Friedman. Cheap, high-speed communications are leveling the playing field between wealthy and developing countries. In this flat world, only the fittest will survive. Friedman explores the economic and social implications of an interconnected global economy. This intriguing and well-researched book both entertains and challenges with its description of a new world that operates at lightning speed.
Now we're ready to start. Hey Peter, what are you thinking about? You look so concentrated and thoughtful.
It's strange, but I'm thinking about my project. I understand that it takes me a lot of time to finish it, and I want to monitor my work. It's important to find problems or obstacles which impede it.
Oh, no, you are productive and always move forward with things that you want to do.
I find myself a perfectionist. I hate it. It's terrible. Indeed, I know. It's something that I struggle with a lot, and that I've thought about a lot. And I know in the past we've talked about it from time to time, so...
Well, it makes you not very productive. I just finished a text yesterday, and I spent a lot more time on it than I should have, knowing that I wanted it to be absolutely perfect.
You're right. That's good when you've actually already started working on something, and you're working on it. That you can set a deadline for yourself maybe and say, okay, now I just can't mess with it anymore. It has to be finished.
But as for me, what I find a really destructive thing about perfectionist tendencies is that they can keep you from even getting started with something.
I will agree with you about these tendencies, but they do not refer to perfectionism. When you are starting something, there are just 2 things that can happen. You could be suffering from fear of failure or fear of success, one of the 2. And, if you're successful then, you're going to deal with like an additional amount of information that you need to process later on. And if you're not successful, you're just a loser.
Yeah, exactly. I find that, for me, this idea of perfectionism is not so much about striving to be perfect. It's more like you are constantly beating yourself up about things never being good enough.
At least that's what I have.
I mean, intellectually, that nothing can be perfect, and nothing I do can be perfect, but it's so, that on an intellectual level, but somehow it's like you are still struggling with this idea that, oh, but it's not good enough, or I've not got all the information I really needed to make the perfect thought.
That is usually the problem that I come with, is you think you have all the information but you don't. And then you start looking for more and more. And while you're looking for all this extra information, you just, forget it. You're not going to make it. For example, 7 hours on Wikipedia later.
I guess you find you are looking at something completely unrelated to what you started out with.
Right. That is the biggest issue, is that you start looking for other information. And then you discover 15 other things that are maybe also relevant or important.
Now we're ready to start.
Good evening, everyone. We're happy to welcome you to our weekly program, World of Books. Today is a very special day, as we have a great opportunity to invite Daniel Sabatier, who manages one of the oldest historic Galliani bookstores in Paris. Daniel, it is very good to see you today. Thank you so much for coming.
Hello, it is good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Daniel, since 2009 you have run Galliani, the oldest English-language bookstore on the continent.
Yes, Galliani started in 1801. It was more of a reading room where English people who came to Paris liked to go. It was a bit like a club.
Why was it so popular among the English?
They published a newspaper called Messenger for English people abroad. Some of the greatest English authors of the time, Byron and Scott, contributed to the newspaper, and their books were also published here.
When did Galliani move to the Rue de Rivoli, where you are today?
The two brothers, William and John Anthony, came here in 1856. They still published the Messenger, but they stopped being a reading room and publishing books, as their father used to do. When they arrived here, they only wanted to sell English books.
When did Galliani turn into the French, English and Fine Arts bookstore, what we know now?
During the Second World War, they were not allowed to sell English books. The grandfather of today's owner said, "In that case, I will sell French books." Hemingway came here in 1944 and signed our book. Other famous writers who came here were Julian Green, Jean Cocteau, and then there were show business people like Charlie Chaplin.
Is it 7 years since you took over the management? How do you run the store?
I had never run a bookstore before and had no idea of how it needed to be done. The owner wanted someone different. For 7 generations, it had always been a family member at the head of the bookstore. He wanted someone who had a new eye, and I was specialized in media and marketing and communications. 17 people work here. We're open 6 days a week from 10 to 7. We're still divided into 3 departments, like 3 different bookstores in one. But today they are not separated anymore, and they work together. I learned that what is important here is to keep a certain spirit.
Do you also organize events?
Yes, I changed this. They used to have 1 event a year, and now we have 2 or 3 a month. Public talks, conferences and lectures, both in literature and in fine arts.
Has the internet had a big effect on your business?
I made a website, but I don't want to sell through it. You can make a reservation on the site. I want to keep as a philosophy the link with the place, as it is special. Therefore, I don't sell online.
Thank you very much.